Molweni, humble greetings. Welcome to this special broadcast called Collaborative Governance. We're looking into positive partnership and co-creation between local stakeholders in Makhanda. This is courtesy of the Kagiso Trust, as it is celebrating 40 years trying to make a difference in different communities all around South Africa, including Makhanda. And today we'll be speaking to some of the stakeholders that we have here present on the production to speak about their role in the community, partnerships with different stakeholders, all under the title collaboration. Collaborative governance is the topic today. Before we head over to the list of panelists representing different stakeholders respectively, Kagiso Trust is on a campaign kophulo lothi-ke inikezele ngenkxaso kumaqela athile esebenzisana kwakunye nawo kwidolophu yaseMakhanda, the likes of Imbumba Yemboni, as well as Awarenet, and also the list goes on. Hopefully we'll indulge in some of that information as we go on with the production. My name is Andile Naika, and I'll be facilitating the conversations today, and hopefully this will share some insights about community service from the organization's perspectives, and also from the individuals that represent these different stakeholders in our community. Now let's introduce to you the panel of representatives from different bodies and stakeholders in Makhanda, which also work together with the Kagiso Trust. On my far left, we introduce Uputi Usia Bonga Gacham. He's a community liaison and outreach coordinator at the Makhanda municipality. And right next to me is Mrs. Unati Class, and she's the coordinator at the Imbumba Yemboni organization, also in the community. And right next to me is Sisi Nelisa and Nkonyana from the UPM, as they're known, the Unemployed People's Movement, and she's a media liaison officer at the organization. And on my far right, Ngupoti Tandukolo Hoi, and he is a robotics and coding coordinator at Awarenet. Very interesting, robotics. When I hear robotics, I think of artificial intelligence, innovation within the technology sector. Just briefly, robotics, what does it mean? Robotics, so that we don't get to ask some of these terms. It's quite fascinating, it's quite interesting to hear of a title like robotics, and also in relation to community service.
Thank you, Putnaika. Robotics and coding, it's a new technological thing that has been introduced. So it's a point of where Abandon are building robots and they learn to code them using the STEM, which is science, technology. So on our side, we teach Abandwana ezikolweni at Joza. We work with different schools, mostly the primary schools, from grade 6 to grade 9. So we have a set of robotic kits, Paguti, so we go to the schools and teach Abandwana the robotics and coding skill. And then we also get a chance to take them to competitions, but compete with other schools from Cape Town, PE, and then they get from there, they get a chance. If they get to win, they get a chance to represent the team nationally or internationally. Yeah.
Now sithetha ngemisebenzi enziwa ngabantu abatsha kwindawo esihlala kuzo, community ezehlukileyo esihlala kuzo. Abatyeleli bethu, panelist yethu namhlanje ngabantu abatsha. Ngabantu abatsha abakwindawo ezizama ukwenza utshintsho ekuhlaleni. kumsebenzi omkhulu endibona uba nani njengoba nihleli lapha nimelela amaqela eniwenzayo ngenzame zokuthi nitshintshe imeko abantu abahlala kuzo. Masiye kuwe tata, usebenzile nabantu abantsha, ngumuntu omtsha nawe, luxanduva njengobona ndithetha ngepanel esinayo namhlanje emele imicimbi mikhulu yokuzama ukutshintsha ukuhlala, luxanduva olungakanani kwaye oluthetha ntoni nakumntu omtsha omele ukuhlala?
Well, I don't necessarily work with young people only. I work with all ages, including young people.
Yeah.
And it's a huge responsibility because young people constitute the majority of the citizens of this place, of the country, of Africa, they constitute the majority. So it's a huge responsibility, therefore. And to address societal matters, we have then to seriously address young people's challenges and problems that they're faced with. Then we'll be able to have addressed a huge chunk of your problem. So it is a huge responsibility, and it needs all of us. It needs collaboration, it needs partnerships from different stakeholders, because that assists us in being able to have the necessary capacity to address the problem. So it's a huge responsibility there.
Now, sisunathi imbumba yemboni ungasichazela banzi uba isuka phi yangumbono wathi wakhuthazwa yintoni na ekuhlaleni kuma nize niseke iqela eliyimbumba yemboni?
Okay, but nizibusele kuwe, nizibusele to the panelists and the viewers. Imbumba yemboni, the word directly translates to a collective of visionaries. So you can just tell ba gabantu abadibeneyo bane vision. Lo vision ke ngoku bafuna ukuyi-implementa. So ubukhulu becala ke thina senza i-community development. So how we came upon was Kagiso Trust saw a gap in our community. After doing the research, babona ikindobana there's a gap between abahlali and leadership in Makhanda. So as a way to bridge that gap, but decide ikindobana, let us look at NPOs that form majority of people that work directly with abahlali. Ngoba abona bantu kusithi zi-beneficiaries mhlawumbe kwi-NPO sector. Ngabo, it's the NPOs that work directly nabo bantu. So ke ngoku approach NPOs, abantu ke ngoku came about besuka from different organizations. Approach ke obviously nabantu ba kana municipality as a main stakeholder. They got capacitated. So we got capacitated and trained in ABCD, which is asset-based community development. Now we just general competency on how to make the government accountable and abahlali responsible. So sithe sophuma apho ke ukulo training ne saphuma sine vision ethi ba kuba izinto zifollowisha a certain stream. But for example, if we want to do something to challenge or to change imeko ye social ills, kuzofuneka nibe kanti ne-organization registered ne-10. So safumanisa in fact, in order for us to be foot soldiers for abahlali and to actually bridge the gap between the leadership and abahlali, let us register an NPO. Saqala apho ku-registerisha NPO esayibiza igama elithi imbumba yemboni, which is basically everyone. It's not only for us, it's actually a community NPO. As a result of, as the pillars I used before, they speak to each and every person in the community because we don't want to leave anyone behind. So sisukela apho ke ngoku, and the significance of Kagiso Trust into the organization and formation of the organization.
Balekile kakhulu ukuthi abahlali ngoba nje bedibene bezama ukusombulula ingxaki zasekuhlaleni bazibumbe and organize themselves njengoba yesitsho sisineliso uze apha umele iqela le-unemployed people's movement. Ibaluleke kangakanani okanye libaluleke kangakanani igalelo le-civil society organizations ezifana ne-UPM in driving the interest of the community?
Mandizibulisele nami, ndizibulisele kubabukeli, ndizibulisele kwi-panellist. Unika umbono othe gabalala kuko. Ukubaluleka kwe-UPM mhla isekwa yayisekelwa into yobana kukho iingxaki ezikhoyo. Iingxaki azisukeli azivelanga zafika ngoku, zisuka kude. Now iingxaki ebezikhona bezifeyiswa i-community yalapha eMakhanda ibiziingxaki ezifana namanzi, ibeziingxaki ezifana nento yobana uthuthwa kwenkunkuma. Umasipala uyaqhwalela ngokwezimali. Kwathiwa ke ngoku makhe sithi thina ezi-UPM ke sike sijonge iimfuno zabahlali. Yenziwa imigushuzo kwajonga iimfuno zabahlali, kwafumaniseka uba ngoku izinto ziye zitshintsha kumasipala in terms of mismanagement of funds. And then UPM was capacitated in terms of political educations, programs ibe nazo. Kwathi ke xa kusenzeka yonke lento kwafumaniseka into yobana wena UPM uyangena umntu uthi ugxothwe emsebenzini akaphangeli. Unfair dismissal, so ngoku UPM ine-activist qha. Umsebenzi wethu masihambe siyocela imali, khanikhe nenze mani aba bantu bakwazi into yobana babe zii-shop stewards ngoku bengaphangeli nabo. Bakwazi uyohamba bayoba yi-mouthpiece yaba bantu bagxothwe emsebenzini. Hamba nawe bheka ngapha. Umzekelo mna ndingu-media liaison officer. I'm not a journalist. Mna ndine-degree ko-social work according to Bansai. But because as an activist ufuneka ube khona indlela ezithile ozifundiswayo so that you can be able xa kuthiwa kuwe nasi story kwenzeka into apha khawusicacisele ngendlela ecacileyo uncensored. That is where you become a journalist, media liaison officer, because uzakwazi uthatha indaba uzinikezele ngendlela efanelekileyo ngexesha elifanelekileyo. So igalelo lethu apha ekuhlaleni into yobana thina siyababumba. Uthi usisi xa ethethayo uMiss Unathi class uthi imbumba yemboni, which was the same vision that UPM had and has implemented and projected towards the community. When it comes to kuthiwa kuyamobilizwa kuzawumatshwa because kufuneka kuyoxatyanwa nomasipala, yayazi ke ingxaki zalapha erhini zihle nje zikhona. Siyamobilize abahlali and then we must monitor. We must be responsible for la march. Abantu ke xa besiya beyomatsha phayana asifuni abantu bazizigilamkhuba phaa bazayokwenza into ezinxamnye ne-mission, vision and objectives ze-UPM. So ndiyacinga uba igalelo esinalo apha kwiMakhanda nathi libalulekile. Oyona nto ibalulekileyo in total ngaske sibambisane, sisebenzisane ukwenzela into yobana le nto izohluma. Mna ndine-NPO endiyisebenzisa under umna, ndayirejistarisha under umna, which is Nelisa Awakening Africa. I do peer education. Who's going to teach them sex education? Akasekho Love Life. Sathe cwaka. Then ndiyapha ezikolweni ndiyothetha nabo abantwana. Who's going to say no to drugs? Bathi yintoni? LO ne? LO. LO ke ukuyabafundisa phaa encwadini curriculum because besitshilo sathi mabayifake. Bayifakile but badinga ukukhunjuzwa kakhulu. Bayi-understande into yobana sisekhona sazobangxolisa. Mabayeke ukuhamba ezitratweni betshaya intsango njalo njalo. Mabaziphathe ngendlela. Also immoral education, indlela yokuthetha nabantu abadala because abantwana bethu baphuma ezandleni ngexesha because of i-peer pressure. Nalapho sikhona yabanqwanqwada.
Civil society is a learning institution. You need to be flexible and also navigate your way around it. But the main objective remains, which is community development. Speaking of institutions, the public offices, I'd say in the form of our municipality, What engagements would Yumhlegazi mention or share with us that are of priority when it comes to community engagement with the public office, as in the form of the municipality?
Well, the Speaker's office, which is where one is located, has a unit called public participation. It has introduced this post which one is occupying, which deals with community outreach. Because the Speaker is given responsibility by the Constitution of the Republic and the Municipal Structures Act that he has a responsibility to drive civic education. So part of that is to deal with voter education. And I want to deal directly with that because we are in the year of election.
Yes.
So I'm just making an example about voter education as one of the civic education programs that the office is going to be engaged in. Because once people do not register to vote first and ultimately not go to vote, what happens is what is currently happened in Makhanda, where you lose a ward or wards because of the number of people registered, because the number of wards is determined by the number of people who are voting and have voted and are registered in that particular locality. And in our case, people are not registering to vote and people do not go to vote, and therefore that reduces wards. But what that also does, it reduces the fiscus of our local sphere of our municipality, because the National Treasury will allocate a budget determined by the number of wards we have. There may be a reduction in wards, but there is no reduction in the number of people living in Makhanda. And the services that are being rendered, they have not been reduced. So now we are going to have to render services with a much lesser budget than we had already in a budget constrained municipality. So voter education, therefore, for us is quite very important as a building block in ensuring that people go to register to vote and ultimately on the day of voting actually do vote. That may be apathy, as some would say, that no, people have they are apathetic and they don't necessarily go and register to vote and all of that. But there is another very important perspective that I want to share, that it may also be withdrawal of people because of probably basic services not being rendered and all of that. There may be quite a number of reasons that why people are withdrawing from participatory democracy. So for participatory democracy, which is what we're advocating for as the municipality, is that we ought to ensure that the maximum number of people that are eligible to vote do vote, because there are two things: people who are registered to vote, and there are people who are eligible to vote. They are 18 and above, but they are not registered to vote. And I was reading somewhere yesterday or the day before, that is about 11 to 13 million approximately people who are not registered to vote. And there was a stat that I was reading the other day that, in 1994, there's about 87% of people who voted that were registered to vote. And in 2024, do you know how many? About 56 or 57, around there. It tells about 30% of people registered to vote did not participate in the participatory democracy. And we have not counted those who are eligible to vote but are yet to be registered to vote. So we are then of the view that really voter education is important, so that we increase the number of people who participate in this young democracy of ours. And we want to do that, obviously, with civil society, with different stakeholders playing different roles, galvanizing and mobilizing society to register to vote. So that is one of the programs that is going to be rolled out by the Speaker. It's just that there are different, it's competing with now different programs that he is engaged in.
Now, as we understand, democracy is a very participatory participatory process, which calls for one's participation, but moreover, informed participation for effective participation in the process of democracy. Now, it's very interesting that you're bringing up a process within the scope of democracy, which is the local elections, which will soon take place in South Africa. Now, I think we've also engaged in the background with some of the stakeholders we have present here as to the follow-ups of education, the following up on capacity built within communities. You know, how do you make sure that the capacity that you extend out to the community is being followed upon to a point where it is being exercised within the processes of democracy? The UPM has engaged the community in different capacity building processes, or capacity building in the form of trainings and sharing of information. What have been some of the challenges in making sure that knowledge earned or gained will be knowledge exercised eventually?
Oh, there's been lots of challenges with regards to that. Because in the society first, people are aging. We've seen that gap. Now, those who are young enough to be able to be taught or to grasp on this information, you see them sitting on it. But you try and re-encourage. Some of the youth that we were 100% sure that they'll come and plow back, some have moved away because there's no work here in Grahamstown. So people have chosen to find work elsewhere. So those are the challenges that we've been facing as UPM. But it does not end there. You keep on trying. As an activist, you keep on trying. You dig there until there's something that will come out. Whether it's water, whether it's gold, you don't know. But you keep on trying, and then you try by all means to create a space that is conducive for everyone. For as long as high crime rate is going down, and then we were part of achieving that, then we are good. For instance, we attended the G20 summit because we have seen a rise in GBV, more especially in my area. People are opening cases, and now they're dropping off the charges. And then when I had the meeting with the station commander, he did mention that, look at the stats. We are not happy about this. We need you guys, where's your GBV desk? And then I said, okay, let me get in touch with them, and then we can see what we can do. We went to Joburg for the G20 summit, and then we were part of all other organizations who were shouting out that we need to make a change. We need the president to declare the GBV as the national disaster. And then we accomplished that because we were part of that. Hence, I'm saying it is very much important for us as civil society to collaborate, work together, regardless of our political views. Because our political views are not going to help the social ills that are happening in our communities. We are also part of the communities. We come from those communities. We grew up here. Some of us went and studied elsewhere, but we came back here. And then if we do not see any change, we need to be part of that change and make it happen for all of us, including our generations. I'm a parent, everyone else here probably is a parent, and then we need to make a difference.
Making a difference, and also speaking of a vision of a better future.
Yes.
Visionaries.
Sure.
You have a vision of a certain future of Makhanda. We also hope for the better. We also hope for things, as we say, that even Kagiso Trust, they are reaching a milestone, turning 40. Life starts perhaps at 40, marking a new beginning for community development. What is the vision that Timbumba Yemboni has for the community of Makhanda?
The bigger vision we have as an organization is we want to have a multi-purpose center in Makhanda. So, sifuna indawo apho uqala emntaneni ukuya kumuntu omdala athi xa efika, whether you need a psychologist, there we can go into that room. You need to apply for umsebenzi, there we have a desk. You need to uplift yourself. Ngoba we have pillars that deal directly with izinto ezinjalo. For example, one of the pillars we have is the tourism and heritage pillar. Leyo ke, it speaks directly to community development. All of them do. Kodwa ke lena ilena siye sathi xa sibona sabona ba ingalwenza utshintsho not only for the organization Makhanda, Eastern Cape, South Africa as a whole. So into ubukhulu becala phayana is that we are trying to, or we've identified heritage sites in the east of Makhanda. Ngoba siyabona mos gap, because okokwethu as an organization is to fill the gaps. So sayibona gap ke ngoku identify phayana kwa tourism and heritage. Sabona ba tourism yethu apha eMakhanda in particular focuses on the west. Kuhanjwe museums, kuyiwa a monument yonke lando. So tourists when they come in baphelela pha, and they're not exposed to the other heritage sites ezikwecala sithi lokish ngapha ke komatyala, ne? So ours is to facilitate that, so that kube khona tourists ezihamba, even locals, kukho abantu kukho indawo ozazi ngoku but actually eli litye lilapha, it has a meaning. Le ndawo ilapha, there's a meaning, and there's a lot of rich history that we have in Makhanda that is not being explored. So xana ke ngoku sisenza into ezinjalo ngoku identify la tourist route, siye sifundise nabantwana into yobana kukho history kaMakhanda apha. Not only Makhanda, there were other fallen heroes ezikhoyo in Makhanda ezihamba ngohlobo history yayo. So there's a lot just to unpack kulondo leyo. Now with izinto ezinjalo, xana preserve heritage sites and historical sites, then automatically development yenzeka.
Yes.
Ngoba kaloku xana si-identify la heritage site, siyanyanzelisa ke ngoku apha kumasipala into yoba la heritage site must be looked after, let us revamp it in this certain way. Then we are drawing in ke ngoku more tourists. And ke ngoku nezinto izinto ezincinci but zinkulu ezifana njenge-dump sites and littering ziyasibambezela, asikwazisa abantu kwindawo emdaka ngoba into yokuqala ubumdaka bendawo. So yonke lento, so I'm just only mentioning this one pillar, but on its own, stakeholders as a different that could actually take the position of the town, lift nje noba kukancinci izakwenza umehluko. So zinto ezinjalo. So but as you said, there's the heritage and tourism pillar. There's also recycling and remediation. That one also focuses on dump sites.
Yes.
How do we turn that litter to something that is beneficial? Eco-bricks, cookie participants, cookie volunteers, because we did a partnership with Monument. So currently they are being trained on how to turn litter into eco-bricks and other recyclable materials. So as long as they plow back into the communities,
Yes.
zinyusa le nto sithi development yabantu. Kubekho ke ngoku the tourism pillar, the sports pillar. Kuyo ke sifuna ufundisa abantwana sporting codes like your hockey or tennis. Ungabi kanti umzekelo there's kukho iholo ekuthiwa yi-Follies ground pha elokishini close to where I live. Phayana kukho i-tennis court eyayenziwayo ngoku akwakusenziwa la holo. La tennis court ayisetyenziswa In fact, yaphela iba vandalized, bathatha tennis nets abantu benza lonto bafuna uyenza ngayo, the poles, whatever. Now, and I think it's because of there is no market for tennis. Sathi sawubona as a visionary. Safumasa into yoba umntana akayazi tennis racket intoni. Let alone a hockey stick. Noba xa ethetha i-golf stick, noba i-weapon, ngoba kaloku uzihlala emva kwecawa. Ubhuti wakho xa esilwa yotsala i-golf stick. Akayazi that's actually a sports equipment. So now kukho ezo gaps ezinjalo esifuna uzibridge. Yabo. Khona i-tennis court ayisetyenziswa ngoba umntana akayazi i-tennis uba yintoni. So that is what we focus on Payako Sports pillar. And then we have the education pillar and the psychosocial. But we believe as an organization that, number one, as much as you cannot teach on an empty stomach,
yes,
you cannot teach good brain. So, and mental health is a huge thing. So we are facing a lot. You just need to go and have a safe space to debrief. So programs there to Psychosocial want to speak to that. And we welcome umntana into the organization. Simfundisele hockey. Ibe background umntana back at home is not being addressed. Mhlambe lo mntana is living in an abusive household. There's this, there's that. So psychosocial then covers his pillars because xana sizodilishana naba besebenza kwi-dump sites. Those are things that funeke umuntu adebriefe ngazo. So throughout psychosocial works, and with the education pillar, sabona into yobana kukho besithethe about young people. There are young people after matric. What do they do? I'm not interested in registering with tertiary education, for example. Then how do we upskill them to enzele into afuna uyenza? Yabo. So in kakhulu ke i-NPOs ziye zishort nge-funding, ne? Ngoba multi-purpose center ayizuvele isuke yenzeke. There needs to be people that come on board, funding needs to happen. Yes. So the importance of collaboration, that is significant. There's stakeholders coming to work together. Yenzela loo nto ba in particular ke phakwa education, because ukunika umuntu skill okanye ukunika mhlawumbe umuntu athi bana mna ndifuna uprint t-shirts, you're going to need la machine, you're going to need someone who's going to teach them that. How are we going to get resources to do that? So basically that is the vision. We want a multi-purpose center where it caters for everyone. Uthi xa ungena uqoma ndingaya ngapha uphume uncedakele as a young person, as a child, as an old person, njalo njalo. So that is Imbumba in a nutshell, and how we are trying to pave the way for development.
Imbali amagugu omntomnyama walapha eMakhanda ithanda utyewa kakhulu lo mbali leyo, kwaye ke iyafuna njengoba sitsho nje unathi uthathelwe ingqalelo njengoba nayo inxalenye ebalulekileyo kakhulu kwezokhenketho, tourism. Now njengoba ningena nje kuphulo olufana nolu lokuthatha imbali nibuyisele ebantwini, nibakhuthaza abantu ukuba bayiqwalasele bayithathele ingqalelo imbali, nokubana ilulutho kakhulu kwisebe lezokhenketho. Ingaba njengoba nibonela umsantsa okanye le gap nithena ifilisha, ingaba mhlawumbi le gap lena mhlawumbi igap yolwazi okanye igap yongaparticipate in such issues, ingaba mhlawumbi nithena oyibona nayibona isuka phi na le gap, yenziwa yintoni na?
Mna ndingathi kudandile ba it's a compilation of everything you've mentioned. Uxana unolwazi oluncinci, there's not much that you can do. So lena ndithetha bana some of the heritage sites nam ngoku ndiyenzalelwane yalapha eMakhanda bendiqala ukuzibona ndiyazi the actual history behind them. So la gap isuke lapho, and also ukubaleka kwakho as umuntu omnyama, baleka kwakho apha eMakhanda in particular, ngoba iMakhanda sikakhulu inenzalelwane ezizingombe isifuba ngoba ngezalapha ne but ke ngoku what does that mean xa usithi inzalelwane ungayazi ba imbali yasegazini nembali kaMakhanda lokuthethwa ngayo sathi satshintsha itown yethu sazibiza ngento ba nguMakhanda xana uzigombe isifuba ba inzalelwane yaseMakhanda then xa ungayazi lonto ubunguwe buqalaphi uyabo apha sinembali yenkosi amachawe that lived amongst us. So even ezolo they named after OBP Zondani. Who were those people? So igap here apho ekubeni kwento bana babe sino understand kwa OBP Zondani ngubani. Then activism around ulungiswa kalaholo ibizosukela kanye kulonto yento bana uBP Zondani is someone that I relate to. uBP Zondani had this significance in society. So kutheni iholo yakhe izoba ngohlobo. Yabo. So zinto ezinjalo ondancama zi-cemetery sites. Kutheni kukho undancama? Kutheni lelo hlobo? So xana ke ngoku thina sibelieve kwinto ethi ba xa ukwazi intsingiselo yakho uyibeke endaweni even ne-identity yakho as a person ukwazi ukuthi thina sihlala phefingo nje lo mhlaba sawabelwa into ethile ngohlobo elithile. Ithini intsingiselo? Then you're going to protect ifingo all your life. So it goes back to lendo sifuna collaboration and active citizenry into bana you cannot want to protect something ongayaziyo ifana nento koko wenu uyayikokosa masinto yakho wenu yazi ba lena i-room display akamakhulu uyayikokosa because unegugu umakhulu nayo uyixabisile. So we're bringing back that essence lento wayithetha usisinela about morality. You can only be moral if you know where you're coming from. So once you start ukuyixabisa into uyixabisa ngosikuyazi i-background yayo egazini lilela hlobo but blood literally poured phayana. Why are we comfortable ubona ilela hlobo egazini kufika kwenzeka i-event kuphume it's just a commemoration and that's it? What happens to develop land now? Ihlale nathi izoba ligugu kuthi. Then xana ixatshiswe sithi umntana makana choice but uzayixabisa nowase next njalo. So ukulwa nala gap zizinto ezinjalo basibone ba xa sinolwa as gap zongabi na information zongaxabisi izinto then yonke enye into nenye into izazenzekalela from there.
If your roots rather are forgotten, then your fruits will be rotten. That's a saying very much relevant to what Unati is saying. Let's preserve our history and heritage and also be proud of it enough to share about it. This is a special broadcast by the Kagiso Trust in celebration of its 40th anniversary. Now, from embracing history to innovating the future, we head over to Tandukolo to share with us the interesting part of technology being made as an accessing or information accessing tool, because we do understand that information at this day is mostly accessed through digital ways using technology. So how would you say or measure the importance of being an institution or a body which is publicly available for people's access to that digital information? How important is your function within the community?
I'm not sure ngawuphendula njani umbuzo wakho because on my point dependele robotics and coding but ngizawuzama. So on our side as OurNet, we have given the opportunity to the community, whereby we have given them free access to access the internet. Apho sisebenza khona ntanomncinci makhulu damkhulu, they are very welcome to come into computer labs zethu and get access to access the computers, whether uyayazi or awuyazi. In a fun way, last year we have abantwana abancinci from I think grade 7 mostly. Xa bephuma esikolweni, the first thing they think it's okay, we have to go at Josa Youth Hub. sihambe sodlala icomputer. Kubo bayadlala icomputer, but what I've noticed when I supervise the labs is that, no man, xa bedlala bona, that's the way of them learning on how to use a computer. In most cases, yezikolo zethu esinazo in the townships, a computer are not accessible anymore. But now when they come to our net, they get the chance to access a computer. Uzambona umntana zange wayitouch keyboard before, but when they start playing those games, uzambona umntana, they start touching the alphabet, and then there was a time where I started a program. Bandaphinda ndayeka esithubeni benibafaka kwinantsika ku-word, and then from kwaza game badlalayo, I'll make them type something, and then uzayibona izokhona into ezawuphuma phayana, and that way they were learning on how to use a computer. Yeah.
Yes. Kumsebenzi omhle kakhulu lo tata. We're speaking about schools mostly which are categorized as quintiles 1 to 3 schools, most of which are no fee paying schools in previously disadvantaged areas within the township. And now we speak of academic performances within those socio-economically challenged schools that you work with, hoping to make a difference in their performance. Now, how would you evaluate your role as in playing an impact in the overall performance of these particular schools? You can name the schools that you also work with and state what particular improvements have you highlighted in working together with the schools.
Okay, so we work with 4 different primary schools, CM Willem, Archie, Iqhewu, Makhanda. And last year we've recently joined with Ikamba Youth. Now we have shifted to focusing on Kwabandwanabe High School. So with the program, SE is IoT into the schools and after school program, robotics and coding, is that abantwana most of the time babanoxinzelelo lwencwadi apha kusasa uyothimini uyafumanisa umntana uyabhalela enantsikeni ebhodini, and you would see that some abanye inantsika umntana phela engafocus eklasini. Now with our program esizisayo thina as robotics and coding is that they get to learn in a fun way. Apho we bring ezinantsika robotics kits, and then we will just place them there. Then you will find out that they can create something without wena telling them what to do.
Yeah.
But now you will see that now ingqondo iyasebenza. Umntana is starting to learn something, or now as a trainer or a teacher, you start learning something from Glamdan, because most of the time abantwana abathandi ufunda gqithi, but once you give them something to play with but bring it as an education thing, then you will start learning something from that. So Inansik program yet brings that kwabantwana, and Inansik robotics and coding, it's just been introduced as the Inansik subject as Golin, but most years Golo is names up in Makhanda, they don't have it. Ikhona yona curriculum, but is goal as nayo. Yeah, so Tina we fill in that gap. But now see most of the time sibethakala in terms of kulento ibethethu unathi in terms of into funding. That's the big issue. Because we have limited resources. Uzawufumanisa kulento ya robotics and coding, when you go to the schools, we are given a number yabantwana in a class about 45. Now you come with 2 laptops, 2 kids, you cannot teach. Kubanzima, because bayafuna focus and nabo bayafuna uthatha, so it's everything, iba chaos.
Yeah. Well, especially now that you mentioned that robotics and coding are now starting to be made as being part of the official schooling curriculum, which is, I think, in the future, it's a potential stakeholdership or partnership that you might have together with the education department, and maybe something to also look out for in the future, as much as perhaps at this stage you are put in the position that you've just mentioned, but it could be a potential stakeholder or partnership in the future, since you've also been pushing, the topic of robotics, even prior to it being made official in the curriculum, meaning that you foresaw the gap probably before it was made official. Speaking of gaps, we are here with community-based organizations whose primary role is to fill in those gaps in the society, which they feel are crucial also in the process of democracy, accessing information, accessing education, as you put it, that you are an institution of education outside of the provided departmental education sphere, outside of the sphere, but also as you hope that you could form positive partnerships also with the public offices. Now, in providing or filling these gaps, esithetha ngazo, amaqela sekuhlaleni athi azame ukubana ancede kwezindawo esithetha ngazo, kwezi gaps. Now, these gaps they vary from one organization to the next. It's very important to also understand the reasoning, or even the why behind the filling of these gaps, and also why are we delivering this particular information. Tata, what can you tell us about the analysis that goes behind informing you what to communicate on? We've spoken now, an example would be the upcoming elections. One would say that it's a reactional sort of activity from you, since it's something that is about to happen. But maybe on a longer run and on a consistent level as well, how do you analyze what to make priority? I think it's a process that even our local municipality undergoes on a yearly basis in trying to source people's problems and issues in the community to influence documents like budgets, the IDPs, and so on and so on. So what processes do you perhaps envision, or have you gone through or highlight as the main sort of aspects to look out for in getting that proper analysis that will inform you of what to communicate and who to relate to in collaborating with local stakeholders?
Well, empirical evidence informs how we react. Empirical evidence that is based on the lived realities of our people. And then you plan according to that which you have researched on and did a study or analysis on. And that's how you then react to that matter. In fact, it would not be correct to conceptualize this project or program as a reactionary program to the election. So it's not the case. The public participation deals with this matter on a yearly basis. But I was highlighting what is going to be launched by the Speaker's Office in collaborating with the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature. Because that legislature responsibility, which it is assigned to the Standing Committee on Public Participation, Petitions and Education. It was part of our responsibilities to educate our people on their responsibility as well to hold the government and the processes that ought to be followed in holding the government accountable on the issues that the government is responsible for. So the processes that are constitutional, by the way, constitutional processes is what you have highlighted, the IDP. That's where you get the gist of what people want. The challenge may be what I've said, budget constraint. But the other challenge may be that our ward councillors, including of our ward committees, may not necessarily be calling the constitutional meetings to address or to inform their communities on how far the issue that may have been raised in Foley's ground. In Foley's ground, they may have raised an issue of they want a soccer field or a cricket field. And then the council and the ward committees have a responsibility quarterly or monthly, quarterly for the ward councillor, monthly for the ward committee, to inform their communities where that process is at. So that if it's at finance or it is supply chain, they ought to inform the community is informed of where the process is. Then you'll be able to arrest the situation where you find the UPM and other civil society organizations leading marches, because our community would have stayed informed about the processes that ought to be followed. The state would want to deal with issues now, but unfortunately it's not the case. We may strongly feel personally that the issue of a cricket field, we want it addressed because we know that up here there are 3 teams of cricket or that play cricket, and that deals with other social issues, because once you address the issue of sport, you address social cohesion, you address unity, you even address criminal activity, substance or drug abuse, whatever it is called, you address that. So you may personally feel that you want this thing built now, but unfortunately there are processes that are there that need to be followed, like supply chain processes and other processes. There ought to be bidding that must take place, and all of that, shortlisting, all of that process that must be followed according to PFMA or other prescripts of the law. So the processes that you have mentioned of IDP, of public participation, the introduction of this office that we're occupying, which is a community liaison and outreach, it's meant for that. It's meant for this particular office to be the soldiers, foot soldiers of that institution, to ensure that we gather as much as we can and that inform council on what it is that people want on the ground, what is being done and what is not being done as enshrined in the IDP. So that's the gist of the processes that the municipality is going to be taking as we move forward.
Now, Mr. Jam, you also mentioned the issue of yes.
My brother there is raising a very critical issue, and fortunately, for that particular stakeholder.
Yeah.
Because now in the Western Cape, the MEC has introduced a term called a paperless classroom, where they are busy rolling out those pads, notepads for learners. It's just that process may not have reached our district or our town or our CMC for that matter. Because I was told that in other CMC, because there are 3 CMCs in our Sarabatman, it's the Makhanda CMC, it's a Rafael CMC, and it's a Human Stop CMC. And I was told that in Human Stop CMC, they've started the rolling out of notepad. So I think that will make their work quite easier when you have a paperless classroom and you have learners who, each learner in the 40+ classroom, all of them have such gadgets in their hands.
That's a very important aspect to also mention, technology. Also in relation to government communication and how the municipality, say for instance, communicates with the community. Going back to the issue of analysis, checking which ways are probably the best ways to communicate with the community as well. Say for instance, since you are in the technology, in innovation, the coding sector, and you being in the public office, which is constantly demanded to communicate with the public as it is, the constituency of the public. Now, you mentioned an issue of budget constraints that are related to your community engagements, also in the issues of the IDP, getting that much needed analysis which will influence the provisions of the local municipality. Now, we're speaking of democratic processes here, maybe the supplementing of those processes, mentioning these that we've just mentioned, which I would like to think they are as important as the elections as well. And now, in evaluating that process, or maybe at the end of each process, maybe at the end of each mayoral sort of period, what has been the impact? As you say, there are gaps, there are challenges and gaps in the processes of analyzing the information from the people to inform your provision. These gaps, what is being made to bridge those gaps? Are we still going to witness imbizos that are not so accessible to people, where people are not fully participating in them? And also you mentioned, gaps even within elections, that people, they have lost hope in participating or even registering and being part of that process. How you as an office which has the duty of bridging the gaps between the municipality and the people are going to address this? How are you going to address this? Because it seems to be a threat in democracy, a blatant threat in the way that if one is not informed or well informed, then it means one will not partake in a democratic process. And as you put it initially, that there are repercussions of non-participation as well. So what are the overall plans? Because it seems to be democracy is what was being liberated for, or we fought for liberation, to live in a democratic state. Are we speaking of democracy just as a concept, but perhaps not as a lived reality? And what are your plans in bridging that gap? Because even when we speak of the elections, the issue of democracy still reigns, because it was an initial issue and it's still an initial issue. And when people are said to be living in a democratic state, are they really living the realities of democracy, or it is a future achievement? It's something that we are working on as a country. But also you as the municipal office, what plans do you have to bridge these specific gaps?
This is quite a loaded
pardon my elaboration.
I may have lost the first one because it's quite a number of questions. Well, umasipala ufana nembiza esiXhosa okanye urhulumente. It's a three-legged board in the sense that you have politicians, administration, abantu. And I think these civil society organizations represent abantu. And all three have a responsibility and a role to play. And we're quite happy and delighted that they've identified gaps and they're playing roles in filling those gaps. And our responsibility would then be to assist and support the initiatives they have taken. I'm sure some would have knocked at the doors of the municipality or any other government department or agency seeking assistance. It will be another debate here whether they've been assisted or not. It's another debate on that. But equally so, the cooperative governance approach is quite key. In the municipality as the local authority of this demarcation, to coordinate the different stakeholders, inclusive of government department, agencies, civil society, labor, movement, community organizations, women and youth information, all those, it ensuring that we source out or we source what it is that may be a challenge and may be a gap, so that all of us own what would be the outcome of that gathering, because it would be coordinated by the municipality, and all of us will then contribute to how we address these certain matters. Imbizos, by the mayor Mbizos, when they are called well in advance. I saw the team that deals with these matters. I think they were printing out notices last year for Mbizos for this year, February. Those Mbizos were printed out notices. So they knew that there is Mbizo on a particular day last year. But obviously there ought to be continuous engagement with the people. But they must go and attend those Mbizos. So people are well informed in advance about Mbizos when they are called, and ITPs and other engagement that the municipality calls. So it then becomes another issue whether they attend or do not attend. It may not necessarily be a threat to democracy to us. When a democratic process is called and people tend to shy away from that process, it means to us there is something that has not yet been done, and then go or deploy your foot soldiers in the form of your community liaison outreach coordinator or officer or officers to go and find out from the people themselves on what the problem is, and run workshops in collaboration with other institutions. And one of those institutions is an office which is in the National Assembly and Parliament, which is called the Public Education Office, PEO. We have established the relations with that office, and we are going to roll out sessions before a Mayor Mbizo, sessions before an IDP, a session before any other interaction with the mayor, so that people are informed, people know what is coming, and actually know the budgeting processes. Because they may feel in their hall, but do not understand how the budget processes works or function. So those sessions are imperative to capacitate our people to make meaningful contribution in the space of participatory democracy. So those are the sessions that we're going to be having. And we may have them in open spaces. Deliberately so, because a hall may be far from the other person. If we talk about Ward 10, for an example, it's a huge ward. If you are going to call people of Kolani to be Bizonan and people of A Street to be Bizonan, some may not come. You may find that 2/3 of the ward is not there. But if you go and say, Nonzube Somgesi and the other street, we are going to gather here at 2:10. It's just a 1 hour program, just 90-minute program. Capacitate that community. Move. Say J Street in Sengenaka is up. This is where, so that you get the maximum number of people well informed on how these processes work, the budgeting, ITP, and all of that, those processes. So we're engaged in that discussion. In fact, we are busy now formulating the discussion document and other documents together with PEO, and obviously the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature.
Civic education, a very important aspect in community development, making sure that the community you're dealing with is gradually being exposed to sectoral changes, and also how the sectors work, maybe more especially the public sector, how it functions in relation to how people would be participating in it, that is fulfilling the processes of democracy. Now, Sis Nelisa, you work with different stakeholders as the unemployed people's movement, and some of those stakeholders are within the jurisdiction of Makhanda, some are beyond, also in other spaces as well. When you're forming a relationship, because there are many stakeholders, different in their functions, some are dealing with certain issues that are perhaps outside of your focus. How do you measure, or how do you identify the proper stakeholders that you would work with?
Well, the excited ngombuzo wakho because we are an umbrella.
Yeah.
And under this umbrella, if it's not for the people, then it does not serve us. It must be by the people, for the people. So, uthethile ubhuti wami apha uthi xa ethethayo ndayithanda kakhulu indawo ngicela ucaphula kancinci xa esithi kwezi processes umzekelo IDP i-budget siyasebenzisana ke nezinye stakeholders andibawula uzibiza kodwa apha siye sifumanise into yobana abantu abakho well informed ohlobo bathetha ngalo esithi abantu ababikho well informed and then ulwazi oluncinci luyingxaki. Now xa sisebenzisana ke kunesi stakeholder uye athathe ndinike ni UPM abantu babe bayi-15 ndifuna uba-capacitator on political education. Now i-political education siyayazi mos Tata Mandela balwa Tata Thabo Mbeki was the president asifocus up sifocusa on unemployment. Kwenzeka njani ukuze kubekho ingxaki ezilolu hlobo ezibhedlele umzekelo onesi bayi-5 ii-patients ziyi-20 abanesi ba-exhausted baqeshwa abanye oonesi. So bona ba-frustrated because babona ezi social ills okanye ezi ngxaki zenzekayo because bathi ke sithi i-health system iyakolapsa. Abayazi ba la mali bekumele kuqeshwa ngaye abanye oonesi ukongeza phaa yile ingakhange ifike because khabavote. Now kula political education bazabe beyiye laphayana zonke ziyacalucalulwa so that bazokwazi uphuma phaa benolwazi olugabaleleyo. Bathi ke ngoku abanye ezikolweni njalo njalo ootishara bayashota nalapho xa beyileyo phayana sithi health system sithi education nayo kuthiwa iyakolapsa. Kwenzeke njani ukuze kube njalo? When you unpack it so that they can be fully informed, then we come back babuye baze up Cape Town babuye baze up and then maqhuba ivangeli. Pass on the baton to olandelayo so that naye azoba well informed because xa esithi no man masitshise sisikolo because siyatoyitoya ngoku esa sikolo xa sizawutshiswa kuzawufunda apha abanye balandelayo. Xa kufuneka kwenziwe ii-petitions okanye kufuneka abantu bevoice out issues zabo ikhona indlela right yobana mabayenze lento. Now i-stakeholders zethu siyasisebenzisane nazo zisinceda ngolo hlobo. Educate, be informative. Kwakuhle ke ngoku wasi-invite uKagiso Trust wathi khanizeni apha nina as NPOs sidibaneni kwindawo ekhethwe nini as Eastern Cape. Hayi kwacaba asivisisani kakuhle abanye bale nale wathi uKagiso Trust zanapha kuMejoburg. Xa nisiza apha ndifuna unibonisa into yobana kukho i-umbrella endifuna unifaka phantsi kwayo wathi i-coalition. Wathi #unmute civil society wasidibanisa sonke under one umbrella so that ngoku sikwazi xa sisilwa into okanye sinendawo apho esingangqinelani kuyo norhulumente sizoba ne-mouthpiece yethu as civil society phaa eParliament. Waphakama ke kwanyulwa ipanel kuthiwa nantsi ke izahamba ngolu hlobo wahamba utata weyosimela phayana. So ngoku we are well informed of the processes that are happening in Parliament of which we were not aware. We are being able to understand xa kusithiwa i-ANC i-attendile meeting bebe bangaphi bebe attendile meeting phaa kubhalwe umzekelo amanani aphezulu but we can follow up on those processes ba aba-attend bayalala phaa eParliament yabazi ke bahlezi besozela. We are being informed. Nathi siyithathele kuthi into yobana we need to know how these processes are happening, why legislation ihamba ngolu hlobo. Governance and legislation, we are being informed. If you can capacitate people on that crucial information, then you are creating leaders.
The power of civic education, empowering abantu basekuhlaleni. Now unathi you mentioned earlier that imbumba yemboni came about from inspirations that were sourced from capacity building. that you got from the collaborations with the likes of Kagiso Trust that kind of inspired you to form your own organization that stands for the interests of the community in Makhanda? And also standing, as OCC has mentioned, how important it is to inform an active citizen. And eventually, though, it boils down to the fact that these individuals, they are voluntary. They're volunteering, they're giving their time to the community. And in some cases, they give their time without getting any compensation for their work and time. Now, can you explain the life of a volunteer? We hear people speaking about volunteer work, explaining the term in different ways, but from an actual volunteer herself, who started the organization from the very bottom, can you explain to us the life of a volunteer?
Okay, there's many aspects to the life of a volunteer. Ngoba, it comes from a place of giving. So, awukwazi uba yi-volunteer kanti usajonge inzuzo. The basis of one of the core beliefs of the organization is that wenza ngokamandla akho yonke into ofuneka uyenzile to assist omnye umuntu without ucinga about what you're gonna gain uphela kwayo yonke le. As a result, we have an ongoing volunteer program. Eqale because zininzi eziphila zethu ne sinazo zidinga abantu abaninzi to make it work. So umzekelo ngoku xana siba ne annual tours, because we have an annual tour event, siye sidinga ama-volunteer kakhulu. So we make a call out onto the community, but unfortunately abantu bethu are not used to that concept. They volunteer, they don't see the importance of it. And no choke into bana mhlambi loo nto yenziwa yintoni. I'm sure ke yenziwa ngezi zinto sithetha ngazo ngokuba i-social ills, ngoba umntu uyacinga uba ndizoya phayana ndizobuya ntye ntoni, ndiyochitha ixesha lam phayana ndokwenza into abantwana bam bazothini. But it doesn't take away from the fact that buhleli kakade ungenzi into. But asikwazi ke ngoku ukwenza ingathi ixesha labantu alibalekanga, ngoba ke umntu ukhetha ukwenza le nto afuna yenza ngexesha lakhe. But what I'm trying to say is kubalekile xana ukuzinikela entweni. I think it's the passion that then drives volunteerism. So kungamandi ke into yobana in our homes kwalapha ezindlini xana siphuma umzekelo kule capacitation sayifumanayo from Kagiso Trust, it's about ABCD, asset-based community development. ABCD, it's strictly voluntarily work. Like awunokwenza ABCD ucinga uba ngomso khona into ozayifumana. So you look at the assets you have in the community, even ingqondo zenu zocinga into yoba makubekho ipark ngoku. That is ABCD. Coming together of those minds. Uthetha ixesha lakho spending uthetha nabantu uthini uzama uconscientize abantu towards this vision. That is volunteerism work. Naxana uzodinga abantu to mobilize bapushe ba what your organization is about, that is also volunteerism. So masingayithatha kungathi izinto ezinkulu ngothetha ngoku ngomso nizawuphuma nithetha ngembumba. That is you volunteering for the organization. So kubalekile ke to build that culture ngoba simkile kuyo. And ke ayincedisi nalento yezi mhlawumbe kubekho ii-projects ezibhatala ma 800 or 1 as stipend zenziwayo azincedisi because zibulala la culture yokuzivolunteer ebantwini. Ngoba even la 800 it's nothing compared to ingxaki esinazo back at home. So andiyazi singa-addressa njani le nto without sounding as if we asikho grateful enough to ezi projects zenziwayo mhlawumbe ezi-EPWP ezi-CWP zifakwayo ngurhulumente. But the gist of the matter is imele biqala kuwe entliziyweni before ibe kanti ine-800 phakathi okanye ineso stipend phakathi. If kwa ii-projects bezinoqala up, even ooceba mhlawumbe bangayiqala kule nto yobana come and volunteer. If umzekelo kuthiwa kuzenikwa izitipends abantu abayi-8, then the other 8 must be just on pure volunteering basis so that ibe yinto ongoing. So ubomi ke be-volunteer bulolo hlobo bu-selfless because you're giving out your time, you're giving out your energy and just yourself.
So passion plays a huge part in the process of giving back to the community or playing a role within an organization which is based in the community and also for the interest of the people. It's very interesting that you are pointing out the issue of passion, doing it as something that you love and also understanding the gains of the process that you are involving yourself in. Because the primary objective is to develop the community before prioritizing stipends. But of course, we all need to survive through the basics, but the fundamental that OCC is addressing to us is the fact that volunteering needs to come from a place of passion. It has to be deeper than what may be outside. But also, as you've put it, it seems like through the confusion in our society, maybe lack of information. So within the civic education, I think just as a point to all the stakeholders around, it would be a good topic to also include when sharing civic education with the people. What is volunteering? What it actually means, even for the person volunteering and for the jurisdiction or the place that they are volunteering at. This is a special broadcast courtesy of Kagiso Trust. My name is Andile Naika, and we're having a chat with local stakeholders. Some they do work together in trying to address some of our societal issues within society. Now, civic society, coming back to the issue of civic society organizations in response to public or community interests. Back to the importance of the civic society organizations. What challenges are you facing? Because we're speaking about collaborative governance, meaning that you will seek relations outside of your organization and want to co-create an opportunity or a problem-solving activity with another organization. We can also speak about our relations with our public office, for instance, or offices, and just mention it could be something of an insight to a person outside of the sector or people who have just stepped into the sector and would like to get more exposure in the community development work. What are some of the challenges? Maybe also in respect to you forming those potentially positive partnerships with stakeholders.
Okay. The challenge yokuqala, it's compliance kwi-civil society okanye organizations. Most of civil organizations okanye movements, they cannot access funding due to being non-compliant. Yona ke le iyasibetha kakhulu. Ndiza kwenza umzekelo. Imbumba yemboni ifuna usebenzisana ne-UPM. Bathi bona pha kubo UPM sifuna upusha le project ibheke phambili, but it's non-compliant. That would mean UPM has to exhaust funds zayo for imbumba yemboni. We need to be very careful with regards those issues because ndifandwa umna Kagiso Trust uthe Kagiso Trust mandenze le program. Now le program ayingqamenanga nale yembumba yemboni. But we would like to collaborate with imbumba yemboni engakho compliant. Izokuyama apha kuthi, because we are supposed to be holding each other's hands moving forward. Because all we are doing, we're doing it for the betterment of the community. It becomes a problem because I cannot be accountable to Kagiso Trust xa efuna imali yakhe back, ebuza ireport yakhe bandiyitheni imali yakhe, because undithume eniniva ndabheka etalasheshi. So those are the challenges, not because anifuni ukusebenzisana, anifuni uncedana, but funeka be compliant so that we can be able to move forward and have work on a clean slate. Because if a movement or organization is accountable for funds as ezinikwa by the funders, which means you are eligible to be continued to be funded. Those are the challenges for civil society. Not only that, at some specific points whereby we are doing the same program, we become big-headed, Tina, and sibe egocentric. Abanye ke bathi babe patriarchal in terms of combining the programs so that we can do them together under one banner, because we are the civil society. Because umasipala wenza imbizo phayana, nathi sifuna busy meeting yabahlali, but we are supposed to attend, but we're also the part of the community. Sifuna ukuyibambela kuthi. Those are the challenges whereby xa sihleliyo ke ngoku kwezi committees, because une committee yakhe, nam ndine committee that I report to as part of a committee member as well. Xa sihleliyo siye sithi ke xa sidibene nabo abanye abazi-stakeholders zethu, we need kwikhalenda yakho nganye ufake iprogram yakho, siyazi wena uneprogram ethile ngexesha elithile, so that singashiyekeli ngasemva, sizosapota wena ngexesha elithile. That way we are sharing that information, senze into enye ngexesha elinye. Not because omnye ufuna unyukela ngaphezulu komnye, apho we are supposed to be working together. That is the whole point. Baziza kwenza ugxubugxubhu, omnye wenza enye ngapha, omnye wenza enye ngapha, because ifuna ukuthatha ifunds pha, ufuna uthatha ifunds pha. It's always chaotic that way. That is when ke ukufumanisa uba kukho mismanagement of funds, because kaloku khasiyenze sigqibela program yazashiyeka funds and then zathwane, because those funds were allocated for a certain program and then someone has to be accountable for la mali. Those are the challenges that we are facing up in Makhanda. I so wish that we can be able to iron them out as a civil society and as an organization, as umasipala wethu xa esibiza nathi kwi-programs, because nathi sine programs esimfunayo as a stakeholder kuzo. For instance, there's a capacity building training for new NPO members or owners. Esibabizayo bamabeze, because nathi sasiyifumene by uKagiso. And then we need to pass on the baton. They must also get babe capacitated, legislation and governance, compliance, njalo njalo, ziyaqhubekeka zonke ziyalandelelana, so that everyone can be able to run NPO. Singanqaphi kwi-NGO.
So the challenges, are they brought forth, as you've mentioned, you've hinted, in fact, on an issue of capacity or the lack of capacity? Should I also mention resources as well?
Yes.
Maybe lack of resources that also could lead to even mismanagement of the funds that you already have as an organization. How, say, you as an organization are planning to change that situation, or maybe advise other civic organizations to look out for in the future or going forward?
Well, we started an initiative that as an organization, so civil organization, we are so much reliant on funding. We do not want to make the money back as much as it's a non-profit organization. For instance, we've teamed up with TCOE in terms of gardening. That way you can keep the organization sustainable. in terms of finances. I can't expect Kagiso Trust to buy me a pen because I don't have a pen for writing a report or whatever that needs to be done. Small things that need us to be, as an organization, to be sustainable, that we can do ourselves. Those who can sew can do that. All we need to do is combine our resources together as an organization. Maybe he can play guitar. When he plays a guitar, he probably plays for his friends and then on their spare time. Why don't we organize something and then it's an event. Yeah. Someone can just pay in to get it to the event. What do you call it? Fundraise.
Yes, fundraise.
We don't want to fundraise as organizations. We want to keep on going and asking. That way, we can try and minimize or manage how people are frustrated from being volunteers. Because when we are fundraising, we are able to give a person whatever that they may need. For that particular moment in time, we all know, guys, unemployment is on high rise. It's tough. Economically, we are struggling to contribute to the economy even of Makhanda because we are unemployed. But if we can be able to manage and do these little things, then we can be able to make a difference, not only for everyone, but for ourselves as well. Because it's not easy to move around in Grahamstown. When I was nominated to be a coordinator for Sarah Batman to represent Kagiso Trust, I was like, how am I going to move around? Because there's NPOs all around Makhanda. Now Sarah Batman Imbaqa. Now I'm going to need to go to 7 Fountains. How am I going to get there?
Yeah.
Those people there, they don't know me. They don't know who Kagiso Trust is. I still have to do about bleed. Ngoku xa ndifika phayana ndizawufika andiphetanga nawo nalo mongi ananix, those little things, because ndiza apha ndizothetha nabantu. So I must be able to engage people or even have resources to go there. So by fundraising, we are able to move around swiftly. We are not reliant. No. We need to be able to spoon feed.
Yeah. So I'm also highlighting some of the gaps, I think, within some of our community-based organizations which are working, as I've said before, for the interest of the people. So even internally, there is yet still some homework to be done.
Yes.
Also in the management of these organizations. And you've mentioned a key aspect, which is support maintaining this organization through funding, outside sourced funding. So maybe even capacitation in that department is very crucial.
Yes.
Also maybe assigning a single person whose expertise solely focus on funding, because it seems like funding and support is a very big issue in organizations, even within our local municipality as well. The issue of funding and sourcing money for the provisions of the public is a very key issue. So we also thank you for sharing those views, because a person outside may not get to fully understand how an action organization runs. You're still in existence, but in existence, what is fueling you and your activities within that civil society organization? So these are very important aspects to mention, which are happening inside. This is a volunteer space, by the way. So those funding could be funding that are meant for the stipends of the volunteers, but it could be funding that is sourced for activities and day-to-day activities of that organization. But as we say, we highlight, community development through these volunteer-based organizations such as yourself. We spoke of a lot even before before today's broadcast about the importance of collaboration with different stakeholders. Most of yours could be in the education sector. Another important part, history. The buildings could be municipal buildings. Some are less functioning than we as the community would like to envision them. We'd like to see them flourish in terms of functioning and being used by the communities where they are in those respective different jurisdictions. You occupy a municipal building. I think a building one which would have been turned otherwise had not an NGO like yourself stepped in to say, we would like to use this part of the old BAB building up in Joza and turn it into a youth hub. Now the municipality or public office is now an official stakeholder in that sense, that you are occupying and making good use of a building which is a property of the municipality, which by right has to have, a benefit for the public. So we hope that those collaborations that you have with the municipality and other stakeholders will flourish, as the future goes, because your work deals a lot also with the future. Imboni has a vision of the future. The Unemployed People's Movement also has a vision of more employment, or even should I say less unemployment within Makhanda. But let me maybe conclude by heading to you. You are a long existing civil society organization in Makhanda.
Yes.
You went through different phases of the organization, but you are still standing for the interest of the people.
Yes.
We spoke about what keeps a volunteer going. What keeps an organization like yourself, I think also with maybe recent political affiliations, but still keeping it within the scope of public or community interest?
That's a vast question. Well, I think resilience, first of all.
Yeah.
When Comrade Ayanda got founded with Comrade Sokuljo founded UPM, back in the days when our crawler was still crawling, when I look at their vision now, they were quite brave.
Yeah.
They were quite brave. Because the political sphere at that time, it was it was a bit rough. But the resilience they had because it had different phases in terms of how it evolved. The organization evolved. I think it your Meleli organization, Lando, being able to shift and move with the times. During that time, for that particular moment in time. But kwafumaniseka into yobana apha eMakhanda ngoku kunkqonkqoza kule office ye-UPM. Uswelekelo uzonkqonkqoza kwi-office ye-UPM. Nathi asiphangeli kodwa uswelekelo uzoxelela thina. But ke ukufumanisa uba kwenziwa imigushuzo kuyankqonkqoza kowenu kunkqonkqoza kaShoprite kuyocelwa into yobana singamngcwabela njani lo mntu. Yaye ikhula le organization ngoku. Omnye ugxothwe emsebenzini eziba besentshile uzoxelela thina akho nto isidibanisa nomsebenzi wakhe thina, but ke ngoku kufumaniseka uba makukhangelwa amagqwetha anokwazi ukumnceda ayomthethelela. Njalo njalo uyayibona uba iye isanda. Omnye ke ngoku ngumntu mhlawumbi ufuna kuthethwa nje kuzobuzwa phi indaba into yobana nithini nina as UPM, what's your opinion on this? Yagqitha naleyo kwafuniseka uba uthi lo mntu xa ebuyayo kakhona ndicela undiboleka abantu endizabatreyina babe zii-journalists. ndicela undiboleke abantu abanganayo imali yokufunda esikolweni abagqibe ugrade 12 thathwa abantu bayifundiswa mhlawumbi babhatelele i-tuition e-roads njalo njalo iye ikhula le nto yathandwa ngabantu yaba resilient le nto because ke iingxaki azizongabikho kwanqaba imali umthombo wemali sayonkqonkqoze eKapa sayocela imali iKapa lasoya lathi iKapa ze nisincedise xa ufuneka siyo-oppose ibhajethi ekhutshwe ngurhulumente xa idicide into yobana i-VAT uyayinyusa sicela nina i-UPM nize nizosincedisa kwafumaniseka uba siyaphuma eprovinsini kwathi ngexesha elithize kwathi onye icomrade eseBlom ndicela nam ujoyina ndibe yi-UPM ndicela uba ibe khona iofisi ye-UPM kulapho ibutshabelo i-UPM izofunyishwa khona yabona uba iyakhula and then it was resilience and then being able to network in spaces whereby it's difficult to ask for money but you are able to just tell ifund into yobana ndicela undiphe imali xa undipha le mali ubone uba ndizayithatha xa ndiyisapha kwi-community yam ndizawuyenza ntoni ndizawubuya ndikuripotela ubuye wena nawe uzojonga nokwakho kwakho iingxaki ezininzi apha abanye bagxothwe ezifama because apha singqongwe ziifama abanye bayagxothwa ezifama but bazoxelela i-UPM into yobana siyakhutshwa phangela mlungu kulaa fama UPM nalapho kufuneka iye uncedisa apha now recently kukho indlela ekwenziwa ngayo akulandelwa ii-processes ezirayithi zokuqeshwa kwabantu kwii-departments ezininzi apha Makhanda we were there at Fort England Hospital Psychiatric Hospital siyo-adressa ezo zinto zinjalo because i-unemployment i-crucial for thina because why sizaba i-unemployed people's movement kube kanti akulandela ii-processes ezirayithi for uba abantu baqeshwe so zii-issues ezinjalo thina esizidilishana nazo but through resilience siye sinyamezele akho lula I'm not going to lie I'm not going to sweet coat it okanye sugar coat it akukho lula it's not easy uphuma kowenu ube ume ikhaya okanye unganabazali uhambe uyothetha imini yonke pha ube ungazopeya it's not easy but through ukunyamezela we are being trained and capacitated and then you are able to look for a job because nakule nto ye-unemployment umzekelo bendithe mna esikolweni ndafundela i-social work but ndithe ndofunda ndagqiba xa ndifika kuthiwa awukho umsebenzi wonondlalondle I had to look elsewhere and then I did tourism management but yafika i-lockdown yafi tourism I had to look elsewhere futhi so that you can be able to evolve ungajongi isifear esiyi-1 uba mna ndagraduatele into ethile what are you doing ngento yobana awuphangeli ngoku so that is being resilient I'm so happy that mna sine-partnership eright with Kagiso Trust with ezinye civil society organizations ezilapha because uyakwazi uvuswa ngo-12 ebusuku kuthiwa abantwana bashiyeke bodwa then because you're an activist you know who to call you know how to help uyayazi bafuneka kwenzeke njani so that kuncedakale wonke umuntu ekuhlaleni it gives me mna ubuthongo obumnandi because ndiyenza ngothando
resilience ukunyamezela ekulendlela yokuncedana ne-community yethu usithi iphupha lakho lelokuba ube yi-social worker uzibona ukule ndawo njengoku but ndifuna ukuthi isekule lo msebenzi omnye nje you're doing social work nangoku sisi awulahlekanga tu so you are well with the dream social work speaking about dreams and the future seswam abanye abantu mhlawumbe baqala uyiva okanye ukuva ngembumba yemboni kwiminyakana nje edlulileyo ngoba nayo akukudalanga sema nditsho isekiwe isaziswa apha kwidolophu yasehleni ingaba mhlawumbi ukujonga phambili intsebenziswano kokunye nezinye stakeholders uyibona ingumbono onjani na
ngumbono omhle kakhulu lo but when we talk about collaboration I think siyasiphose the important word before it which is significant ngoba it's one thing DT, I'm in collaboration with Mansipala, but all I do is just go speak to the Speaker's office, but akondi landelayo after that. So I think where we, to bridge that gap of collaboration, what's important is to have significant and meaningful collaboration. Goba, as Cecily was saying, that we cannot be leeching off each other. But if the vision is the same, then we're able to move forward and benefit holistically as different organizations and for the benefit of the community. Yes. So, and also, ngaskabantu bati come to the party. As Namuga, I don't want to be specific in mentioning is different stakeholders and stuff, but we've been knocking on doors. Ezinye breed fruitful results, I must say. But ezinye ufumanisa but there's a lot of gatekeeping. So kungaske abantu, not only in the NPO sector but different departments as well. And they ask urhulumente ubukhulu becala uyathanda uba ne top-down approach. So kungaske in the future, hopefully very near, that they start realizing that you cannot conclude the operational plan, annual operational plan, ungakhange come down to the forces. Forces being abahlali, whether through NPO or directly through uthetha nabahlali. So in particular the public sector, no bottom-up approach, because it's no use. Teenagers and NPOs work directly with the people on a day-to-day basis. But when they come to the community, operational plan because they have reports. But what's important is that continuous engagement, though that is where networking that is meaningful and collaboration that is meaningful is going to take place. And this is if in straight crate that sibhekelane as abantu. If there's an organization and it's not particularly yours, then there's nothing wrong in saying our network deals with this and create that network. And the singalindeli organizations as well established njenge Kagiso Trust bana mazize zizosidibanisa masisidibanele and it was thina singaba bantu singenando sisebenza nabantu abafana nathi abangenando. So intone eyenza bana kukube nzima into bana masidibane sibone bana sizawunceda naphi nalapho yabo. So also local governance siyabona, it should come closer to the people. We are here to bridge that gap. So asikwazi ukwenza meaningful collaboration nomansipala singakhange bekanti, because local sphere is the lowest governance. So kabone mele balapha ebantwini. The mere fact that kungekho database NPOs kaMansipala iyathetha lona. So nazini into bana benza into ethile so that collaboration izoba meaningful. Kuye kube ngathi uMansipala usebenzela abantu abathile, hleli nje simbone esebenzela abantu abanye nyaka nanyaka. Makuyazi ba ngoku kulo nyaka they're collaborating with this one. Next year they're going to collaborate with us and be transparent. Collaboration needs transparency. Yes. Because there's no way I'm going to come into the organization kanti khona into endifumbathileyo mna endizayizuza kanti. So you must be transparent to saying this is where we want this to take us. Even in Ngumansipala saying we are campaigning for this, it's okay. Tell us directly, but we are using this as a campaign to do this, so that we go into that. See us about what is expected of everyone. So there is no collaboration as of the under carpet. Abantu must be open, transparent, and be able to hold each other accountable for collaboration to be meaningful. Yes.
It's the topic of meaningful participation, or rather participation, yes, in a partnership for positive co-creation, not just with private stakeholders, but with public offices as well, like your municipality. It's a call from civil society saying they would like to see improved relations with local municipalities and other public offices, offices kahulumende, amaqela asekuhlaleni yakhala athi ngase abone noko udlelwano luphucuka phakathi kwamaqela asekuhlaleni okunye namaziko karhulumente ngendlela ke zokuphucula le misebenzi siyenzayo civil society organizations zokuzama ukuphucula ubomi babantu, because it seems like whether private or public data, the interest is the same. The interest is that of the public or the citizen or the community. Whether we're speaking of the civil society organizations, whether we're speaking of even different departments within the municipality or offices within the municipality, the main purpose is to improve the life of the citizen or the community member, the person out there. So in the conversations that we're having today, we also hope that we are also using it as a learning platform to also see some of the gaps even within our own organizations or even within the cycle of partnering with other stakeholdership in making the work that we do in the community better. That is public, I say public and private respectively, because the purpose is the same and also we are satisfying the same sources which are the people. Especially now that we're speaking about the local elections, because we're calling upon the public to participate in the processes of democracy. How have we been relating to the community? The very same community that we're anticipating to participate in this process. Are we constantly in communication and interacting with them? And what does that mean eventually in the processes of democracy? We'll revisit, hopefully in the future, some of those key questions which earmark, even the reasoning behind a person's ballot decision, because these are also part of the reasoning behind why individuals, citizens, voters, they choose or make the decisions that they make during the elections, the public participation, but overall the fulfillment of democracy. I think democracy has been one of the main underlying issues or basis of these conversations that we have today. So we'd like to just thank you as our very insightful panelists for sharing your very insightful experiences, from your offices, from your organizations, and your relations with stakeholders and individuals in reaching and fulfilling that community development aspect. I think that's also one key issue which binds each of the stakeholders we have here. I would like to thank Tata Jam, Sebonga Jam, in the arms of the municipality, trying by all means to bridge the gaps between the public office and the public itself. So we hope to interact more on that topic. And also would like to see you working more with local stakeholders, such as the stakeholders we see in the panel. Tata, Sebulaga Kolu, Sisunati, thank you very much for sharing your insights. As an organization which was inspired by some of the issues and problems within Makhanda, with the hope and vision to address these problems, but collectively as well with positive partnerships of other stakeholders like Awarenet and the UPM as well. So we thank you for your insights today. Sis Nelisa, thank you very much as well for sharing, also the history behind one of the longest existing NPO in Makhanda that's been driving the interests of the people, sharing deep insights that some of us may not have known, and also the challenges. I think it was quite interesting to share some of the challenges that you go through as an individual and also as an organization, where you see your gaps within your organization. Sometimes you get to see gaps outside in other sectors, maybe in the public sector. But it's very important to also see gaps within your organization that could be improved so that the organization can better function going to the future. Siyabulela kakhulu sisi sibamba ngedlanza zombini. Tata siyabulela kuwe kakhulu also for breaking down what robotics is initially because it's an interesting topic, one which is very relevant in the current generation leading up to the future, and also especially when you're linking it with education, you know, as an extra sort of an extra arm, you know, of the curriculum. So siyabulela kakhulu tata for sharing your insights as well. My name is Andile Nayika, and this has been a special broadcast of the Kagiso Trust as it celebrates 40 years in trying to make a difference in different communities around South Africa. We celebrate along with it, and we call upon you to be part of this amazing journey of giving back to the community, you know, sharing experiences, but furthermore assisting and also evaluating your activities to eventually see the changes that we want to see in our community. And on that note, thank you very much for joining us. As I've said, this has been a very special broadcast by the Kagiso Trust, and CISO Media has covered us on the media side. So broadcasting has been done courtesy of CISO Media, a Makhanda-based media company, telling and reflecting real people stories around Makhanda. We hope to co-create something amazing as we reach milestones like 40th anniversaries. Yes, we thank you very much for being with us and joining us on this special broadcast. Thank you very much.